Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Last time you were here, we were talking about the case for the Nintendo Switch 2. Today, we're going to be talking about the system itself. So to preface this, I want to say how much the Nintendo Switch means to me. The Nintendo Switch came out at a time that I was just getting seriously into video games. And I was able to work and afford to buy it myself. And it means a lot to me that I was able to do that, and will always be a big part of my life. And so when the Switch 2 got announced, I was super excited. I had been following everything that I could up until that point, and when it finally got revealed, I was ecstatic. When the presentation happened, I was ecstatic. When I saw the price, I was not ecstatic. In fact, I was kind of disappointed. I didn't think I was going to be able to get one. Fortunately, I was able to secure one. I figured out a way that I could afford it, and now I have it here. And I've been playing it for the last month. The first thing I want to talk about with the Nintendo Switch 2 is the first thing I noticed out of the box. When you get the Switch in the box, the Joy-Cons are on the side and the screen is front and center. And my oh my, looking at the screen in that box it looked big. When I picked it up for the first time, it felt massive. Compared to the Nintendo Switch, I mean, it's huge in every way. It dwarfs the Nintendo Switch screen, especially when you turn it on. Here I have the OLED, where you can see some people say that the OLED screen is better, and it is brighter. The colors are a little bit better, but the Switch 2 screen with the size and the resolution of being full HD is unmatched, especially with the refresh rate being 120 Hertz. When you compare that screen to the original Switch, you see just how big of an upgrade the Nintendo Switch 2 is. The Switch 1 screen, especially the non-OLED edition, is puny. And then when you play a game on it, the 720p resolution is nothing compared to the 1080 of the Switch 2. Playing Rocket League on the Switch, after playing it on the Switch 2, has felt almost borderline unplayable because of the resolution. Now, moving on to the next thing you notice in the box is the Joy-Con. Obviously, as you all know, and as you saw, the Joy-Con on the Switch 2 are magnetic and easy to use. They're easy to take on, easy to take off, and they're super comfortable. They're much larger than the original Joy-Con. And with that comes the feeling in your hand being a lot better. I will say the corners are a little bit sharper on the Switch 2 than they were on the Switch 1. And sometimes that does dig into my hand a little bit, but it's not terrible. But after playing with the Switch 2 and using these Joy-Con, going back to these feel like a toothpick. So that's the biggest thing I think that you physically notice with the Switch 2 is just its size. It is so much bigger than the Switch in every way. One of the other ways you see that on the Joy-Con is the buttons. Obviously, these buttons, you may not know, are metal. And that is what is attracted to the magnets on the inside of the Switch 2. And they are much larger than the original Switch. So that has come in handy. I've played with these sideways, and they feel about the same as the original Switch Joy-Con overall, except that these buttons are larger and easier to press. A new feature with the new Joy-Con is the mouse controls, as many of you probably know. Probably all of you know. And if you go down to the controller section on the Switch 2, if you scroll down, you'll see there's a thing that says how to use mouse controls. If you find that, find a place to use them. There's how you put on the straps, and you take them off and just wiggle it around. And once you do that, the mouse cursor comes on screen. And then you can see how to use the mouse, and it gives you that little demo. So you can use the mouse and see how it works without having a game for mouse mode. And so that's really neat. And it has this little, I wouldn't call it a game, but this little demo that you can see how to use it. And honestly, after using this and using a Magic Mouse at school for some of my tests, people have said that the Magic Mouse is bad. I would say that the Switch 2 Joy-Con used as a mouse is better than a Magic Mouse from Apple. I said it, I'm not taking it back, it's true. Once we get past the hardware, when you get into the software, obviously the Switch 2 has a much stronger CPU, so I guess that is hardware, but that impacts the software. And you can see as I do a side-by-side load test of Rocket League on these two systems that the Switch 2 will be much faster. You can see it in the short I posted as well, but the Switch takes almost twice as long to load a game than the Switch 2 does. And with that also comes smoothness of loading. When I get into Rocket League, you'll see that I'm able to hit the buttons once I get this Joy-Con off, and you can see the Switch is still trying to load. But I can get into the main menu smoothly, and I can even load into a game to start playing all before. Okay, so there's the Switch 1 finally loaded onto the home screen. But as you'll see, it's taken a while. It's thinking, okay, we're on the title. I hit LNR. It thinks, it freezes. Now I get into the news, but that's slow too. And I'm in the home menu. Meanwhile, on the Switch 2, I'm getting into a match. So there is a clear expression of how much better the Switch 2 is over the Switch 1 with its load times. Sorry, once I got into the game, I realized now I have to finish it. Is this good? Alright, so next, again, with Rocket League, I've been able to try out the Switch's built-in microphone, which is really nice. On the Switch 1, the Bluetooth wouldn't let me use my mic on my earbuds for some reason. It was really weird. But I've been able to use the built-in mic on Rocket League with my friends, and it works flawlessly. I haven't heard what it sounds like, but they say it sounds great. And none of my other friends have a Switch 2 yet, so I haven't been able to use the game chat function, but the microphone is great. Now, cameras are another part of communicating with people on the Switch 2 with the game chat feature. And I haven't had the chance to do that because, like I said, none of my other friends have Switch 2s. But it's nice to know that I can whenever they do get them, and I can play the new Mario Party with cameras, even though I didn't buy a Nintendo official camera because I have a USB webcam. Even though it's USB-B, I'm able to, or USB-A rather, I can plug it into the dock. If I had a USB-C cable, you could plug it into here. But I plug a camera into the dock and it works fine. You can go into the settings on the Switch and test a camera. But any USB camera should work with your system. To finish off, I just wanted to talk about some of the things that I have a problem with the Switch 2. One of the great things is that the dock on the Switch 2 now has an Ethernet cable. Unfortunately, that has impacted me in a negative way, which surprises me with Wi-Fi. Because sometimes whenever I turn my Switch on after it's been in dock, on the Ethernet, the Wi-Fi won't connect. And I have to either restart the system or completely forget and reconnect to the Wi-Fi. It's really annoying. And then another problem with the Switch 2 is the game key cards. The game key card situation is horrendous. I hate it. I shouldn't have to sign into an account or have a digital game only on one system. I should be able to play it across all three of my Switches if I so desire. I understand not at the same time. That's fair. But I should be able to play my games whenever and wherever I like. And having the game key cards restricts me from that because it requires an internet connection to transfer those games. And I've ran into situations where my Switch and Switch 2 are both turned on, connected to the internet, and it says that I can't transfer because they're not connected. And it's been super annoying. So, to show you a little workaround, if you go into your system settings, go to user settings, scroll down to online license settings, you can turn on use online license. And that will allow you to do this, where you can see the Rocket League game key card is loaded on to my Switch 2. If I pull out my Switch OLED, you can see Rocket League is not loaded, but because of the online license, when I select to play, it'll check if I can through the internet, and then it'll load the game. So that's one way that makes this situation a little bit better, but it's still not ideal, and I want to say that Nintendo should fix this, and I hope that they will, but I know that they won't, because that's not what they want to do. So, those are the things that I've enjoyed or not enjoyed with the Nintendo Switch 2 over the month of having it. I will touch on Mario Kart real quick. Mario Kart has been super fun to play. I'm glad that I got the bundle because I don't know if it would be worth the $80 that it's priced at, but figuring that I got it for $50 in the bundle, definitely worth that. So those are my thoughts. And I have loved the Switch 2. If you can afford it, I'd say definitely get it. It's worth the money. I initially, like I said, I wasn't too excited about the price, but given what it can do and what it is, I think that the price is worth it. So that's my thoughts on the Nintendo Switch 2. I hope you've enjoyed. Subscribe, like, share the video. Help me get to 1,000 subscribers. That's my goal. And I'll see you next time.